Okay, we're now joined by John Reese, co-founder and CEO of the Mayhem Festival. How are you today, John?
I'm excellent, man. How's it going today, brother?
Doing fantastic. Can't wait for the big Mayhem show. But I know you've got quite a history in the business. So I know the Mayhem, is this your 9th year?
This is our 8th year. This is year number 8.
8th year with the 9th and 10th coming up. I'm sure there's no end in sight. It's an amazing event. Now, I know that you started, in Phoenix as in the security business and got involved with the Guns N' Roses guys with Doug Goldstein. Tell us how those early days, working with GNR really helped prepare you for what you do today.
Well, Goldstein and I met. He actually worked with me. I owned a security company, and he was up in Flagstaff, and he would bring guys down, and they would work security events in Phoenix back in the early to mid-'80s. He left and went to work with a bunch of groups, and then he eventually became the tour manager and then co-manager of Guns N' Roses. And he called me up and said, "Would you be interested in coming and working with me?" And I'm like, heck yeah, I would. Guns N' Roses was starting to blow up, and so I loaded up the truck and moved to Beverly.
Wow, amazing time. I know it was certainly a historical era, but I know a lot of drama was, in those days, and quite a few riots and dealings between band members. So I guess it really prepared you to deal with anything in this business, right?
It really did. And I was young, too. I was in my late 20s, and so, I was on quite a roller coaster ride in my late 20s with the biggest band in the world, and it really, taught me a lot. And I don't know that music has that rock music has seen anything, since that. I mean, they were so massive on so many levels. Guns N' Roses was, besides selling records and concert tickets and merchandise. I mean, they were massive, and it was quite a ride.
Well, I was at those shows at the LA Coliseum with the Rolling Stones, GNR, and Living Colour, and I remember when Axl jumped down and wanted to run around the track at the LA Coliseum. Is that like a logistical nightmare or what?
Yeah, I was there with him. We did a lot of those kind of runs with Slash and so forth, and some of the DVDs we shot in Japan and so forth. They used to love to jump off the stage and run around, so it was a good time. But it was quite a hell of a time with GNR and how big they really were during that time. I mean, I think we did over a 2.5-year period. We did close to 300 stadium shows.
Wow.
It was something else. Yeah.
Amazing stuff. So I know from there you got involved and created the Taste of Chaos with Kevin Lyman. How did you meet Kevin? How'd that team come about?
Well, after Guns N' Roses, I signed a bunch of bands, Danzig and Stone Roses and Candlebox and you name it. And then in the late 90s, early 2000s, I signed up some Warped Tour bands, and Kevin and I had known each other, but I had a band called The Used who became pretty big, and they were one of his, key artists. So we became very close because of that. And then, with The Used, they never had like monster massive hit songs, but we wanted to make them, feel bigger than they really were. So we started Taste of Chaos with them as kind of the anchor artist, and went and sold out arenas all over the country, and it really, I think, it benefited them, and it allowed us all to start a new property, which was Taste of Chaos.
Sure. Now, why did that run its course, and how did that lead to the beginning of Mayhem?
Well, it's interesting because we still did Taste of Chaos during Mayhem. It's just, I think heavy music will never, heavy music will always, heavy metal and heavy music will always have its place. With Taste of Chaos, we really started with a lot of the, the emo core and so forth, and those bands that just kind of run their time. Now they're back popular again, and we're considering doing another Taste of Chaos thing because of the renewed popularity and the type of bands that played the original Taste of Chaos. So, we're always looking at opportunities and ways that we can bring fans, a bunch of different artists packaged together at a really fair price.
Now, I know obviously there was somewhat of a hole created when the Ozfest kind of ceased doing what they were doing. Is that part of the reason why you jumped in and created Mayhem?
What happened is I think the year before we created Mayhem, they did pre-Ozfest, and so it's really hard to go after you make something free. It's really hard to kind of then make changes to for it to be back to being a standard paid gig. And so we had an opportunity in 2007, and Rockstar Energy Drink, who I'd done a bunch of work with, said we really want to be in the heavy music arena. And so I reached out to I signed Slipknot back in the day, so I reached out to them, and Kevin and I reached out to Disturbed, and we ended up being able to figure out how to put those two groups together to launch Mayhem, and the rest is kind of history from there, and that was in 2008.
Well, I know last year with Avenged Sevenfold and a lot of these big bands, you have history. You had them on A Taste of Chaos. So how important is it to be able to pull off Mayhem and what you do by having deep relationships with the artists?
Well, I think it's it's critical because these bigger artists, they want to know that they're working with people that are going to have their best intentions at heart, and when we've proven time and time again that we do have those best intentions at heart. And a lot of these bands can play our festivals and then afterwards go headline again, which once a band goes through a town, generally they've cooked the goose. Whereas on the festivals, you get a lot more bands, but they don't play as long as sets and so forth. So you get, the opportunity for some of the bigger headliner bands to go back through these markets and tour, play them again, as well as the smaller bands who didn't have a big fan base. If they play at Mayhem, they're playing in front of 10 times what they normally play with, so they can come back because more of those 10 times amount of people want to see them. So it's really a win-win for everybody, including the fan, because they get a bunch of acts at a really fair price, and then if they're really into somebody, they can check them when they come back through the market.
Sure. I know last year you started the inaugural Knot Fest. So how did that all come about?
Well, it actually started in 2012. We did two of them. We did one in Council Bluffs, outside of Council Bluffs, Iowa, and one in Minneapolis. And they were hugely successful. And then the next year in 2013, Slipknot was working on their album and so forth, so we didn't do a Knot Fest. And then we launched what we hope will be an annual event last October, and we're working on 2015's Knot Fest as we speak. All details are going to be released to the public on June 29th, I believe, for 2016's Knot Fest.
Fantastic. Now tell us about this year's Mayhem. You got Slayer, which is a perennial return, and you have King Diamond, which has never been on Mayhem before that I know of. Tell us about your lineup and why you feel very strongly about it.
Well, I'll tell you, look, Slayer's been on twice before in 8 years, but they'd never been the closing artist. And we feel like, Slayer, Metallica, they're as integral as heavy music as it gets. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Tom and for Carrie and for their manager and their whole tour family. So we wanted Slayer to be the, hoist the torch, if you will. And they chose to do that. And an artist that they really wanted on that they'd never toured with before was King Diamond, who's just legendary in the heavy world. And so we reached out to the King and found out if he could do it. And, a couple weeks later we had the deal done, and he's on it. And then, so we gave those real legacy fans something to sink their teeth into, as well as young fans to check out. And then, bringing Vince from Pantera and his group Hell Yeah was great. And get some of that. And then, we got some younger stuff and then some older stuff. And we just really wanted to give, the fan, the younger fan into the older fan, everybody something to check out at Mayhem, which is what we've tried to do every year.
I know you've kept the price low. You have an amazing deals going on for the veterans and the lawn areas and all that. Why is it important to really try and keep that ticket price down?
Well, look, people don't have a lot of money, man. The general metal fan I'm not stereotyping here, but it's not a CEO that's got a ton of money, so we really wanted to give, there are more expensive tickets right up front, but we wanted everybody to have a chance to come and not to have to spend their whole paycheck to get to see the Mayhem Festival. So, we're really super cognizant about ticket prices and about, making deals where people can come if they buy, multiple tickets and get to the show. So, it's a very important part of what we do is to try to keep the prices at a place where people can afford them.
Now, I know you're starting this year in San Diego. It's always started here in San Bernardino. Any reason to add that to the leg?
Well, we've done San Diego 1 year. I think it was the second year. It might have been the first year, actually. But, we did pretty good there. But then we felt like, let's just do one big mayhem in Southern California. But, San Diego fans had all, emailed us and gone on our Facebook and said, why don't you come back to San Diego? Why don't you? And then, so we did a poll and everything else, and a bunch of people seemed excited about it. So we're going to do it.
Well, I know it's a new day and time as far as the industry goes, and you have certainly kept evolving with the times. What does it take for a young band to get on your radar, to get on that entry level for Mayhem, and what other advice do you have for artists today coming up?
Well, look, there's a lot of buy-ons happening right now all around the place. We've never done a buy-on Mayhem. We do it on merit, and we really look at the lineup. There are some people who give us criticism for, putting younger stuff on that appeals to younger people, but the whole thing has to grow. Our goal, our ultimate goal, is to bring people a great show at a great price and hopefully have some profit left at the end. And then secondly is to develop new artists, because with the whole shall we call it the crumbling of the record company system, they're not, record companies are not creating new rock bands that are becoming successful. So touring is super important. So we pay attention to a lot of different factors when we book the whole lineup, and having Victory, who's so strong and so engaged in the heavy music community, that was great for us to get 4 Victory bands and have them push the hell out of them on that. By Artist Murder is one of probably the hottest up and coming heavy band out there right now. Sworn In and Prada and Whitechapel have played before, but they've continued to build audiences, and we wanted to give them a little higher profile. So, it's just a lot of thought goes into all of it. There's no like magic formula, and we look at, we get probably 500 to 700 submissions each year to play the festival.
Well, it's an amazing show. We'll keep spreading the word, and we thank you for doing it. Thank you so much, John.
You got it, man. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you in San Bernardino, man. Hook me up. Look me up.